Hey guys, Matt here from Seeds of Awareness. Welcome to the Awakening series. This is episode 3, and in this episode, I'm going to be exploring the question, who is the real you? So obviously this is a very deep and philosophical question, and our beliefs around it are going to be deeply personal as well. But I think this is a really important question to explore in our lives because our beliefs around it really create the foundation or the pivot point for basically how our entire life functions, because all of our actions and beliefs and activities and pursuits and ambitions that we pursue in this world are going to stem from the foundational beliefs around who we think we truly are. So to give an example, most people in the world, especially in the Western world, they identify as who they are as being their ego personality. And they often do this without even realizing it. And I explained in a bit more detail what the ego personality is in episode 1. But basically, I perceive it as being the illusory part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that comes from the mind that we identify with, but really is a product of our culture and environment and programming. So it's all of our beliefs and our name and our titles and our roles that often get given to us by our culture, especially by the media, by our education. And this part of ourselves, there's nothing wrong with that part of ourselves, but it's not, in my opinion, it's not really the true us. It's not really who we really are, because it can change at any moment. I can change my name, I can change my beliefs, I can change how I perceive the world, and people do that all the time. We go traveling, we educate ourselves, we grow, we develop. That part of ourselves is always changing, so we can't perceive that as being who we really are. And then people also identify with their body, identify who they are as being their body. So I see myself as a 6'3" Australian male, and I've got red hair and white skin, and I've got certain characteristics. And that is an experience I'm having in this lifetime. But again, I don't perceive that as being the true me, because the body is also changing as well. Just like the ego personality, it's not changing as rapidly. It's definitely more permanent, but we all know it's changing. We see that as we're aging, and it's said that every 7 years that every cell in our body has regenerated itself. So we're an entirely new body every 7 years or so. And so can we identify with the body as being who we really are? I don't think we can. So is there something else? Is there something more permanent to us that exists beyond these illusory aspects of us? And I think there actually is. I think there is a deeper, eternal self that survives the death and the changes of the body, that doesn't change as the outer ego personality shell changes. And for most people, this eternal self is witnessing their life, is observing their life very, very passively. It's that silent witness that most people don't even realize is there, because they're so distracted by the outer world. They're so distracted by their ambitions, their goals, the highs and lows of the world, the pleasures, the anxieties, the fears, the joys, all these things that we have in our human experience, as well as all of our relationships. These things are just part of the human experience, but they can also be massive distractions and can disconnect us from who we truly are if we're just constantly focused on them, if they've constantly got the center of our attention. So that's why meditation is so highly encouraged, because it allows us to retract away from all these outer distractions and actually go deep within and search for that inner self, a search for that silent observer, that impersonal self that is just witnessing everything. And if we don't meditate, if we don't retract away from the outer world and all of its distractions, we're never actually going to connect with that. So for most people, they don't even know it's there. They're so identified with their ego personality. They're so identified with the body and everything that stems from that they're just so in the world, they're in the material world, that they don't ever really stop to seek that deeper spiritual self. They don't ever slow down to connect with it. Now, for a lot of people who have actually discovered that deeper self, that true self, that it often happens because of a spiritual awakening. And that's what happened to myself about 9 or 10 years ago. And spiritual awakenings often arise from a lot of suffering. They often arise because we've really been operating in our ego, and we've been seeking all the things that we think will make us happy. In my case, it was being a professional athlete and seeking money and chasing girls and partying and binge drinking and drug taking and all these things that I was seeking because I was trying to fulfill myself deep within. I was trying to find a sense of purpose and pleasure and joy. But what I didn't realize is that I was lacking those things because I had disconnected myself, severed myself from who I truly was. And it was only because of the pain that all of that ambitious seeking caused, and the destruction I left in my wake, not only to my body and mind, but to relationships and the people around me that all suffered as a result, that I really got a massive slap in the face. The suffering that it creates can hit you like a bucket of cold water. And what that does is it wakes you up. You go, holy crap, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I living this way? There's got to be something more. There's got to be a deeper purpose to this. And it's those questions, when we start asking them, that can really change our life. Because what happens is the deepest true self, the spiritual self, no longer is a passive, silent observer watching things from the background, unrecognized by us, where it can have no influence on our life. It's just watching everything, waiting to be recognized, but we just keep ignoring it. When you have a spiritual awakening, that deeper, truer self basically transitions from being a background figure in your life to coming to the forefront. And that doesn't change that you've got an ego personality. I still have a personality. I still have my name and my beliefs and my all the things that make me who I am, that my culture and my upbringing gave me. And I still am in this physical body of being an Australian white male with red hair. That hasn't changed. But what's changed for me, and what changes for many people who go through this experience, is that I'm no longer identified with those things as being who I am. They're just experiences that I'm having. I'm now identified with this deeper self that can go by many names: the true I, the true self, the spiritual self, the divine, whatever you want to call it. I'm now identified with that self. And what that does is it just completely transforms or changes the foundation that your life is built on. So because that deeper true spiritual self is aligned with higher energies, is aligned with the entire universe and divine cosmos, your life begins to be built on a foundation of higher morals, higher spiritual morals, where you want everything to basically have a deeper purpose to it. If relationships aren't fulfilling you on a deeper level, if your career isn't fulfilling you on a deeper level, if everything you're doing isn't fulfilling you on a deeper level, on a deeper spiritual level, you just don't see the point of it. You don't want to pursue it. And most people still pursue their ego-oriented things out of fear. But when you're identified with the deeper spiritual part of you, that fear begins to evaporate, because you realize fear is illusory. All of this is illusory. This is all going to change. As permanent and as real as it feels, my personality, my body, your personality, your body, it's all going to go away one day. That can bring up a lot of sadness and a lot of fear and horror in people. But when you surrender to that and realize that there is a deeper, truer self that I believe survives the death of the body and has many different incarnations in this world, and probably other worlds, and probably is different animals and different genders and different experiences, you realize that this is just an experience we're having, and there's nothing to fear. Like, the worst thing we can fear is death. And in my opinion, death is just going home. It is sad, but death is just going home to our truer self. And so when the fear of death and when the fear of death starts to evaporate, the fear of failure starts to evaporate, and you start going for life. You start basically taking more chances and taking more risks and delving into the unknown, even if you don't know what's gonna come from it, even if your choices don't seem logical, but they just feel right on a deeper level because they fulfill you on a deeper level. And you find that when you live your life from that foundation, it changes everything you do. Now, I just want to make a big point here that I'm far from being basically perfect in that area. I've had a spiritual awakening, but it takes a lot of self-work to heal all the traumas, to heal all the programming, to remove all of the things that are in the way that are basically blocking our true deeper self from properly expressing itself in the world. Not to mention all the fears of being judged, the fears of being different, the fears of being ridiculed, the fears of failure, all of these things that we have to do a lot of work on to work through and peel away so that our true self can actually properly express itself in this world and fulfill what I believe we all have a unique soul mission here, and the only way we can fulfill that is to remove all those things blocking that true self. So whilst I've come a long way in that regard, I do not consider myself to be enlightened or to have, to be where I want to be. I see it as a lifelong process, and I see it as probably a multi-life process where we're constantly working through our karma and working through our soul lessons from lifetime to lifetime and getting better each one. But even understanding this allows you to be more gentle and compassionate to yourself and to forgive yourself for not being perfect, because we're going to fuck up regularly. We're going to constantly make mistakes. Especially when we're going for things, especially when we're taking chances in life, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to experience pain and suffering. But again, all of that is part of the journey. All of that is part of the lessons we need to learn. And so once you realize that and you just fully surrender to that, life becomes much more of a flow. Life is no longer scary or threatening. Life is just about experiences. The body is an experience. It doesn't matter what gender or what body you're in this lifetime. It's just your experience. You've had different experiences in the past, and you're going to have different experiences in the future. And it's the same with our ego personality. It's just an experience we're having. And so, but you can only really, really embody this, really understand these words rather than just being words in your mind. You can only really understand them if you experience it. And the only way to truly experience what I'm saying is to go through that spiritual awakening. And the only way to go through that spiritual awakening is to surrender to life. Life wants you. The universe wants you to awaken. It will give you everything you need to awaken, as long as you trust it, as long as you surrender to it, and as long as you don't resist what it's trying to show you. And so if you do surrender, if you don't resist, you will have that spiritual awakening if you haven't already. And also, we need to get in good habits. We need to meditate daily. If you're going to just never take a step back from the distractions of the physical world, then you're never giving yourself that time to connect with that deeper, truer self within. And so, these are the things that I think are really important. And if none of this resonates, then what I'm saying will probably sound crazy. And there are people in the world who just are atheistic and don't believe that there's anything deeper, and that's fine. We can all believe what we want to believe, but this is just what I perceive as being true. But either way, it is, as I said at the beginning of the video, a very, very important philosophical question to explore. And I hope that this video has given you some deeper insights and some food for thought. And I look forward to seeing you on the next video.